All right. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for joining this impromptu going over what Jefferson's like, because we all want to make sure that Andrew doesn't crash into the woods, like the video I was showing you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. What am I going to share? Okay. I sent out a PDF to you guys, right? So all I did is I went to Google Google Maps, and then basically just did a screen capture. Can you guys see the screen now? Okay, cool. So one of the things I noticed was the actual Google map online, it's not showing the track itself. Like if you see the street names and stuff, that's the old section. So the new section was add to it. And then, I only have Microsoft Paint, which is not very good. So I just basically draw the lines and basically cover. So the actual course is not this sharp, but you have to excuse me on that one. All right. So what the first thing I want to go through is I want to go over what the actual place looks like. So when you come in, when you guys drive into Jefferson, so has everybody been to Jefferson?
No.
Okay. So like when you get it, so basically Jefferson's at the end passing the Washington Circuit, so everybody knows how to get there, right? So when you get in there, when you get to Summit Point, you drive it like you go into the Washington Circuit for autocross. You pass the Washington Circuit, and then in a couple 50 yards later, you're in the parking lot for Jefferson. So when you come into Jefferson, you actually come in on the I'm not sure. Can you see the pointer when I'm sharing my screen? Okay. So right here, so basically you come in here and this is the paddock, right? So I don't have to explain paddock to you. When you guys park, you just park right in the paddock here. And registration is going to be in this room right here where it says classroom and bathroom, right in this section right there. Okay. And then once you're there, check in and all that stuff, and then the tech is usually in this section. So basically, when you get your car and all that stuff ready, you drive through tech, and obviously go pack in the paddock, and then people go to there's a mandatory drivers meeting and all that stuff, and then we get started probably around like 8:30, right? So I think it depends on which group that you're running. You're either running at I know that right around like 9:10 is usually the qualifying for the time trial group. And then they usually mix advanced, intermediate, and novice group, throughout the day. You're going to get 4 sessions, and sometimes if you have combined sessions towards the end, you get to drive even more. So I don't know what everybody's strategy is, but basically, what I would do is when I deal with something like this is I try to find the 2 sessions that are closest together, and then especially now we're running in colder days, you try to get your tires hot as possible. Right, and then once you're there, once you get the tire up to the temperature, then you hold on, then you find some way to kind of preserve that temperature. So on the next session, you're not wasting the first lap or the second lap to kind of get the fastest speed, right? But that's something that that everybody can think about. But I know that racing in the summer versus racing in the middle of fall, it's 2 complete different things because you have temperature variations, right? Okay, cool. So. And then what I want to do is I want to go over just some basic etiquettes or rules when you're running on Jefferson, right? It's very similar to Summit Point. I talked to Carwin a little bit earlier on, and then he didn't even know about this. So when you guys grid and basically getting ready to go, that the earlier you get to the grid, you're going to be lined up first, right? So even though not everybody knows that you're actually running for time, regardless of what session you are. Chances are, what you might want to do is, especially after the very first session, once you get your tire up to temperature and get used to the place, you want to get to the grid as early as you possibly can, right? Because if you lined up in the front, and especially your intermediate and advanced, you can control the pace of that first lap. And so if you can control the pace of that first lap, and if you time it right, don't slow down everybody, don't let everybody pass you, but running at a decent pace, you can probably get 1 or 2 laps of no traffic right from the start. Right. So one of the things that I would recommend is unless you're running in time trials, you guys can coordinate with each other. So if you're running an advanced group, everybody would know roughly how fast that you can run on that track. Right. And so among yourselves, basically figure out the run order let's say if you have 6 people running in advance and then 10 people running intermediate, let's say, and then all 10 of you guys running intermediate should show up right from the beginning. So basically be at the grid 15 minutes before, right? Before everybody else lined up. And then talk among yourselves to know that, if you think that this person is a little bit faster, less stuff, then you just lined up in that order, right? So then what happens is the first 2 or 3 laps before all the rest, but before you caught up the rest of the traffic, you can basically based on your order and get clean laps. The key thing is like when you go to time trial nationals or any of these events, they always said that everybody's working together as a team, right? Because the best time you can get is the laps that it's not being interrupted. So if you worked out among yourselves where the sequence is going to be, you really can control what everybody else is going to do behind you. But if you're there in the first place, then chances are the same entire group can probably get 2 to 3 laps, hopefully, of uninterrupted traffic time, right? So this is kind of important. I'm not sure if you ever run into a situation where, like, well, this person's holding me up, I'm holding that person up, I'm trying to get past this person, that person's not doing point buys, right? But if the group is large enough, you can actually control that by showing up there early. So that's one of the things that I would do, right? Yeah, go ahead. Mike?
Yeah, we can't see anything. If you're sharing your screen and the graphic,
you can't see anymore?
It's gone.
I'm not.
Good?
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. I'm just seeing his profile picture.
Okay, so let me reshare.
I think if he focuses and unfocuses on the window, it depending if he's focused on the window, it is sharing or it stops. I'm not sure why though.
Same.
Okay, then
you
that's
see it again?
really weird.
I see it.
Yeah. So if you lost the screen, just interrupt. You don't have to raise your hand. Just say, "Hey, I can't see the screen anymore."
I can still not see the screen. Here, let me leave and come back.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll try the same thing.
Bye.
Yeah. So we'll pause for a second. So what I was talking about, does that make sense to everybody?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's for time trials, it's really important because like we're all a lot of us are autocrossers, right? I mean, I know Dimitri and John will understand this, but the thing is for most autocrossers, like we get our uninterrupted 20-second gap to run, right? So on track, it's impossible to get that uninterrupted 20-second gap unless you're the very first guy at the line, right? And that guy's going to get 1-2 minutes of uninterrupted traffic, right? To run. So the key thing is you want to create yourself that key 3 to 5 seconds gap of nothing in the front and nothing in the back. And it's difficult when you have 30 cars when the track is only 1 minute and 20 seconds, right? So in 80 seconds divided by 30, you only got 2-3 seconds, between cars, right? So you really need to work together, especially the people in the same group that you're running without instructors. Just be there early. Get your 3 seconds, space that you can run. And then everybody needs to be realistic about the pace that they're actually going to be running, right? Because the thing is you certainly don't want, some cars that are going to lap at 1 minute and 50 seconds to be mixed together with a car that's 1 minute and 20 seconds, right? Then you're going to end up losing a lot of time that nobody's happy. So everybody work together. It's probably the best thing. You can almost do this. I mean, another suggestion is if we don't know what kind of pace we're going to be running, use that very first session to determine how fast people's times are. And then you can tell that, okay, here, let's say you were in traffic the entire time, but you could run a couple of seconds faster. Then just later on when everybody get together, between the hour, just to say, okay, here, I can run, 125. And somebody can say I can run 127. And then it just lined up in an order. So then the second, third, fourth session, you be in the order. Right? I think that's something that definitely, if we work together, the experience will be a lot better. So you're not getting stuck behind somebody. Yeah. All right. Okay. So when you first started at Jefferson, everybody's back, right? I'm assuming everybody's back. Okay. All right.
Yep.
So if we come down, if we at the start, what you will see people that work in the grid and then basically give you the green light to go. And sometimes they will line up in 2 rows and sometimes in 1 row. And most likely it's going to be a single row all along this Jefferson Circuit road here, right? So when they started going, and this is important, if you run main, it's the same thing. When you go out into pit in, when you get to pit out, the very, very first time you get out, you always stay on the far right-hand side. And then basically, obviously, you want to keep an eye on traffic, but 99.9% of the time, there won't be any cars coming by because you just start a session, right? But it's very important at Summit Point that when you start off, when you're going to pit out, stay on the right-hand side. Don't ever merge into the left, regardless on what you do, right? And that's the rule of Summit Point. So the key thing, the thing is if you go there, especially try to get a check ride or something like that, what Mike wanted to do. But if you come in there, you're thinking that when you first get in pit out and come out here and do some S's, kind of heat things up, right? That's a big no-no, right? Don't ever come out and then basically across.
Hey, Danny. Danny, just to drive the point home, I was at an open track day at VIR where my buddy was running his $200,000 Porsche GT4 IMSA cars, and I did not stay track right coming out of the pits, and I ran one of those cars off the track. And because you might not think of it, but when you come out of the pits on the straightaway, you can check your mirrors once and not see anybody coming, and then check it again, and there's someone coming up at you at 100 miles an hour that wasn't there a second ago. So, it is really important that you stay the line and that you're predictable to other drivers when you're pulling out back on track.
Right, exactly. Right. So whatever, what John says is 100% true, right? So you definitely don't want to creep in over to the left, even that there's no car, possible way that a new car is coming on when you first do pit out. And obviously later on, if you have traffic, so you decide to pit in for something, hold on for a few seconds, and you pit out again, you absolutely have to stay on the right-hand side, right? It's not even negotiable. In fact, what happened was one of the time trials I went there, it was actually at Jefferson. So when I came out there, I knew that, I was the first car, right? The first car out. And I didn't think that, I know that there was nothing. So I come out there, I try to get a little fancy. I did a little S's, and then they immediately blacked me at station 1. Right? So just remember, that's definitely a big no-no. And then, so right here, this is corner 1. So I'm gonna talk about, should I talk about, I want to ask you guys what you guys think. Should I talk about how to drive this corner right now, or do you want me to give you kind of an overview, like really in a simple, really like a quick overview over, how every corner is, and then we can look at the video and then break it down into exactly what you can do to get a lot of time out of it. Okay, all right, okay, so let's do that. Okay, let's do that. So when you come out here, I'm just going to assume that when you come out on the first warm-up lap, you don't do anything. So let's start talking about, when you come across turn 14, you start going the back straight. So the start and finish is almost exactly here, where the pit in and pit out, and then the this corner right here is, if you guys can see my pointer, and then the start and this is where the start and finish is. And then by the time you come across the start and finish, what you want to do is you want to creep yourself on the left-hand side, right? And then there are 2 separate service roads that connects the 2 places together. And then basically your braking zone is going to be somewhere around here, right? You want to probably brake right before this last service road. And this thing comes up in a hurry. So especially first thing in the morning, this is going to be really, really slick, right? So what you do is you come out here, and then the very first turn is a decreased radius turn. So if you start hugging in on a corner, and then you usually get yourself crossed up, and then probably going to end up on the outside. So what you want to do is you want to get onto the apex. You want to get on your turn in a little bit, probably 20, 30 feet into the corner before you start hopping on the curb and stay on this curb, right? Okay, and I've definitely seen guys on their very, very first hot lap, they went straight through here and went into this woods. Right, definitely seen that before, right? So be very careful. Now, and so when you come across here after the first turn, corner turn, this is a decreased radius turn, but let me move up to corner 2 and 3. You notice that 2 and 3 is a quick S, right? So this is just like autocross with, these are like huge offset slaloms. And so I always approach it as if this is a very quick left and right, type of offset slalom I'm driving through. And in order to get a lot of speed out of this, you absolutely have to exit off far on the right-hand side here, right? If you get your car crossed up to the outside, there's no way you can make it back to generate any kind of a speed through this slalom. So when you think about backsighting in autocrossing, this is the part that you need to think about backsighting between corner 2 and 3. All right. So right here, I set up wider here, right? Because on this turn in right here, this is a long left-hander corner. But what happened is there's you notice that if you look at it, it's not an increased radius turn, but it's a little bit more decreased radius than turn and then increasing, right? Because this turn actually continues turning. So if you hop onto this curb a little too early, that's also no good. So what I would like to do is I usually set up a little bit wider, and then wait a little bit before I hop on this curb. Then I can maximize this run all the way up here, right? This is an uphill run through here to turn 5. So turn 5 here, this spot right here, this is where the bump that we were talking about in our chat earlier. So as soon as you make a right-hander turn, there's a huge bump right in the middle, right towards the middle and right side of the track, right? If you have a car like Mike's, which is a little bit more stiffly sprung and the travel is not that huge, you're gonna hit it, you're gonna feel it, right? And this is the spot where a GT4 claimed that they hit that spot and their strut went through the strut tower, and they totaled the car up here in this area. And I was there for that event, right? So if you ever heard people talking about GT4 shock tower break-in and all that stuff, that's what happened there, right? But what I also heard was the person's running more camber than they should be, and then it's not factory spec and all of that stuff. So who knows, right? Don't know what's going on. But here, if you have a really nice softly spun car, like even like an Atta's car, right? So when I ran through the Supra through this, I barely felt anything. So you can really attack it uphill, right? Okay, so now here, right at the top of the hill on this section here, this turning will be kind of blind. You won't be able to see what kind of turn-in is. So you just have to trust the stick on a curb here until the road appears, right? And then right over here, you can probably see this. There's this is one of the worker stations here, right? So actually, I should talk about worker station, shouldn't I? So for station 1, there's a worker station here, and I believe there's one at 3 here on this corner, right? And then I believe that there is one right here, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it's on the right. And then right at the top of the hill, there's another flag stations up here. So when you come across 6, this is the trickiest section, in the whole course here, because usually what happens is if you look at, I'm not sure if you saw the Alex's car. Remember, I think Greg shared a video of Alex going off, and then the car hit the berm and it went sideways, and there was like dust everywhere. That video. So if you ever get a chance to look at that video, he drove this corner as if there's only a single turn. So what he did is he came in and tried to hub the curb here, but he couldn't. So then the car just wash out on the outside, and he was never able to kind of bring the car back to the place where you can turn in to kind of get through corner A, 9, and 10, right? So what I would recommend is driving this corner as a double apex. So when you come up here, basically instead of coming on the outside and turn in, I almost drive straight on the side here and actually turn it up here a little bit higher. And then I go back on a curb and then I stay on a curb all the way out here to this corner. And the reason that you have to be there, you see that there's a little X here that says, if you're not here, you're screwed. That's because you need to be at this spot in order to full throttle through 8, 9, and 10 and going back to the straight. And there's a lot of time to be gained in this section between 8, 9, and 10. All right. So then we'll continue. And then 8, 9, and 10 is just you need to stay ahead and then really track out, and then don't be lazy when you exit onto turn 10 corner. And then as soon as you made a right-hand turn, a left-hander into exiting turn 10, there's a bump right here at the straight. And that's a part of you almost have to be a little bit more careful. So usually what I do is when I exit out of that corner, I don't track all the way out to the left-hand side. I actually take midline to avoid that huge bump on the left, and then I come back to the outside. Okay, that's something you just kind of have to remember. Or you can try to experience it and see how bad the bump is. I know in Mike's car, it will be pretty jarring, but I think in Ada's car, it'd probably be okay, right? So then when you go through this bump, and now here comes almost the fastest section at Jefferson, but not the fastest. The fastest actually after turn 11. So this is a straight run all the way. Basically, you started kind of going uphill a little bit, and then right over there, you hit the top of the hill, then you started going downhill. So I think that's the hardest part. I think that's the hardest part of how to brake, on this course, right? Because you basically ride over the hill blind, and then when you go over the hill, and then you got to start braking and start going, and make your left hand turn. So this is what I would say. The very, very first time you drive it, right? Do not brake after the hill, right? Just like the first couple of runs, just kind of get used to it. I would say the latest brake on the top of the hill, right? And then let the car start going downhill then before you make that left-hander. When I first started running over there, I always get checking out. I actually brake about 10, 15 feet before the uphill so I can slow down the car enough. But then I think that's too early for braking. So once you get over the hill, then you realize, oh man, I still got some ways to go. And then I speed up and then make that turn, right? So this is something that you definitely want to do by feel. When you go across, at turn 11, is you definitely want to brake in the beginning, somewhere around the top of the hill or just before, and then feel yourself out. And then I would bet you at the end of the day, you're probably braking 10, 20 feet after the top of the hill, depending on how fast you're going, right? Okay, so now we're getting down to turn 11, right? Turn 11 is an interesting turn. So what I typically do is I take midline and I hug in, then I try to apex right at the, right in the middle of the turn, and then I stay on the curb a little bit, and then I start tracking out, right? I also attached a video that I asked you guys not to share. That basically it's a sound of somebody hit the tree, and then it went yellow flag, and then went full course yellow, and they shut the course down. That's exactly what happened here. When the guy exited off turn 11, he got late, and then he never bothered to come back. He thinks that he can track out and save it. Then he lost it and got in the dirt, and then couldn't control it, and then shot it straight into the trees. And that car was totaled, right? And then 2 events later, one of the person I actually know lost it here and actually flipped her car next to the tree on this corner too, right? So I'm not saying that this is a super, super dangerous corner. It's probably not if you drive it right? But be careful here, because this is a place that I've definitely seen incidents, right? All right. Okay, so now let's go down to almost to the finish here. So on the finishing straight, when you track out, you can probably stay all the way out to the left, but eventually at some point you want to make it back to the left, right? Because what you want to do is you want to make it back to the left in order to drive this kink full throttle at turn 12. So basically, as soon as you go over the kink at turn 12, and then for the most of the events, somebody will lay out cones and tell you that this is a braking zone. And based on what my experience is, I can full throttle, out of Supra and basically brake right at the cone where it tells you that their recommended braking point. It's actually okay. So I would usually carry it a little bit deeper and brake really hard. And then this corner is interesting. This corner, if you try to apex around if you try to track out all the way over here and then try to apex here, that's way too early. So what you almost have to do is it's almost like the pistol grip at Shenandoah. You come up from the outside, and when you dive in there, you want to dive in and ride the inside curb, right, for the most of the turn, and then they usually put the apex cone right outside on the right-hand side where this blue X is. So you can track out to the blue X, and then drive as a decreased radius turn, and then basically track out here into the finish. I think that's probably the fastest way to do it. So basically, come in, stay tight on the curb. Don't treat this as a steady state turn. Treat this as almost like a 90-degree turn into this, right? And then get your car tracking out to the outside cone here, and then tug it in. So later on, when you see my video, I actually didn't bring my car out here on that fastest run because there was a car in front of me. So I actually got distracted. I turned in too early. But normally what happens is if you track out all the way to this spot, especially on your first, right before your first hot lap, if you can get your car out here and turn in correctly, you're going to have a lot of speed going down this straight. Okay. So, and then go through the start and finish and then just keep going. And then one of the things I got to make sure is when you're done finishing everything, when you come down here on the straight, so especially when you do your cool down lap, just make sure you watch all the traffic, right? Because this is fairly long, and then by the time when you hit here, you say I'm gonna pit in. But what a lot of people is doing is they're trying to get their fastest lap. So you definitely don't want to kind of coast around here. If you're going to coast around here, stay on the inside so that people can can drive around you. And then especially in here, don't slow down too much. Only when you get to this point when you try to pit in, then obviously put your arms out and then slow it down, and you can pit in right here. And make sure that people know that you're definitely pitting in by staying all the way on the outside line. Okay, so that's a quick run through of this place. Anybody any questions? Is it going okay? Too fast? Too slow? Yeah.
Do I change my turn signal on corner 7, or is that a 3-point turn?
Oh no, 7 right here. So now look, I mean, you want to ignore my line that I draw, right? Because yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, like you can put a turn signal on, that'll be okay, but if you look at this, I mean, doesn't this look like a pelican? Like a beak and eyes and.
It looks like Toucan Sam.
Huh?
Like a dinosaur.
Yeah. Yeah. So the thing is that big smoke that came out of Alex's car. This is where he spun right here.
I hope I don't fruit my car.
Let's see what else. I would say if you ask me what's difficult, what are some of the key things on this course, is this decreased radius turn. You definitely want to be on the right side, or else you're going to lose a lot of time between this, right? And then it's a little jarring to kind of go from 4 to 5 and kind of charge it uphill, but if you work out some courage that you can charge uphill, just be ready. You may hit that bump and the car might upset you. So basically the very first couple laps and stuff like that, or the first session, just feel what that curve is doing. Just feel what that bump is doing to you. If the bump is not feeling so bad, then you can drive a little bit more aggressive. If the bump is really bad, then just be careful through here. Over here on this double apex portion of it, I don't think it's. I mean, I don't know if it's that hard to execute, but you definitely have to execute it. But if you definitely run into issues, then just take your medicine. Just stay inside the curve as long as possible, because it's actually off camber here. It's going up. This actually, when you come in this direction, it's actually downhill off camber. So it's really hard to stay on the curb on this spot at 7, and that's the reason why you're double apexing into this spot. Right? Exiting 9 to 10, you can carry a lot of speed, but watch out for this bump. Braking zone here before 11. That's something to think about. In here, when you come through here, just make sure that treat it as a 90-degree turn. Very similar to Dominion turn 8, right? Or Summit Point pistol grip. They're all very similar. Okay. All right. Any questions? Anything before I? Then we can go to the video. We can dissect the video a little bit.
Let's go video.
Good. Okay. Cool. All right. So take out this. Okay. Let me share the video. I don't know how the video is gonna share, but we'll find out. All right. So hang on. Here's the video. All right. Everybody can see the video. Okay, so this is just the start, right? This is the back straight. So you can see that Justin's on the left hand side, and then he was already done with his session. He knows I'm running another session, so he stay way offline, and he's pointing me by. So now there are two things you can do. If you know each other very well, right? Like I know Justin very well, and I run with James Avenel, you know, and Martin Kritz and those guys. They run these things. I know them well enough that if they're in their cool down lap, they will automatically pull over on the side and give me the clean line, right? That's somebody that actually knows you and try to be considerate. But most of the time, people are just going to stay on their own line and then point you by and let you go by on the opposite line, right? So you just have to make your adjustments. You know, and again, you know, these type of days, it's not like nationals and stuff like that. When you go offline, you pick up a lot of crud, but it is still possible that you can pick up stuff. So when you go offline, just be careful that when you bring your car back, especially on the hotter days or whatever, you might pick up a lot of junk or a lot of you know OPRs or rocks and all that stuff back, right? So just something to consider. But especially if we run between ourselves, and then you know, especially when you run in a group, and then as long as everybody knows where they are, once you're done with your lap, if you want to be considerate, you can pull it offline and then give people a point by it on the opposite direction and give them the line, and that's perfectly okay. But you have to be careful that when the first car passed, there might be a second car that's coming, right? So so when you do your point by, make sure that you definitely see every car that you're trying to point by. And I can't tell you how many times that somebody points by one car and then immediately don't do any signals and stuff like that. And then the next car is right and the first car's bumper. And then they're not seeing the point by stuff, and then you just kill their runs, right? So, you know, some to consider, right? Okay, so I'm gonna keep going. So right here, this is what I was talking about. Well, we'll talk about on the next run. So this is the downhill braking zone. So now this is the back straight. I'm just gonna let it run. I mean, everybody can still see the screen, okay, right? So yeah, so this is when I'm working to the left, so I can make this kink here to the right. Okay, so now here comes the final turn, right? So you notice that I'm turning on the corner, then I track out to the outside cone, and then I tuck myself in. And now I'm going through start and finish. Here's the start and finish. So this is the start. So you can see that here's the pit in, right? The car is coming over this way. So if you're on your hot lap, somebody's coming out to the right-hand side, you got to make sure that you got to work yourself back to the left. Okay, so you'll see the car was starting to work back to the left. So now I am all the way on the left-hand side before the pit out here. And you want to make sure that when you drive, you definitely want to make sure your car is back in this direction before the pit out, just in case if somebody didn't see you, right? So now come across here. So right here, do you see that service road that was open that just ended? That's where I brake. And let me go back a tiny bit here. There, this spot right here, usually when, see the line here? So this is usually when you started braking on your first, you know, in the morning. I mean, you know, usually when you brake. But remember, the very first run at, you know, the middle of October, you might have to brake earlier than that, right? Otherwise, the guy shot through the woods in here, right? Okay, so here it comes. So this, so what we just passed is the first worker station. I mean, or the you know, the corner station right there. So now I want to talk about this turn one here. Okay, so this is you can see the guy right here, right? That's the first turning station. So now you see the curb starts here. Ideally, you do not want to jump on this curb. You want to give it a little bit more time before you jump on that curb. See right here, you can get on now at this spot. Because once you get on this curb, you got to stay on this curb and do not turn left until the curb runs out. And that's the perfect spot on the turn in to attack the S's, basically corner 2 and 3. Okay, so watch this. So you stay on the curb. And so now, ideally, actually, if your car is a little bit over to the right, it's even better. But from this point on, you want to full throttle through this if you can. I hesitate a little bit because I was a little bit tiny late, but you can see that it's continuing accelerating. Now, this is the backside part of the offset slalom that I was talking about. Yeah, I lost some speed there. Okay, great. All right, so now you're at the spot where you want to make a turn onto the left. So this is turn 4, right? So this corner right here, you do not want to jump on the curb that early. You want to be a little bit midline and then get on the curb a little bit later because this turn actually is quite long. Okay? So you stay on this. All right. So now you're in good shape, right? You stay off the curb, and then now you can see the uphill attack. And what you're seeing here, this is where the bump is, right over here, right? So now I'm gonna then the key thing is when you get to the bottom of the hill, if you worry about the curb, you usually slow down. But you can actually attack halfway up the hill before you start slowing down. So we can look at the speed here. Okay, right there. This is where the bump is. Right? Bam, you see that the car just, falls down and get back up. Right? But in this case, it didn't really upset it much. And then what I usually like to do is I like to stay on this curb all the way until I reach the top of the crest, and then I track out.
Next left.
So this is where you track out here. Okay, now you notice that I want to go back here a little bit, tiny bit. Okay, so here's another workstation here. So basically, I track out now, and then I will immediately braking back to the left for my double apex. See, bring it back now. So now I'm gonna hit this corner, drive out a little bit. This is my first apex, come out, and then make my second apex for the double. First, until I just passed the first apex. Here's my second apex. So now I'm back on this curve now, right? And then the key thing is you got to stay on this curve until your right-hander lane opens up, right? This right now, so far, this is probably the fastest way through this. Sam Strand was one that told me to try it this way. And I don't know if you know David Kramer, he's pretty crazy, pretty fast. He also tried it this way. And if you ever watch Matt Hoffman's video, he does it this way too. So I would say most people that are trying to be as fast as they can at Shenandoah, at Jefferson, this is their way to do it. And this is also the safest way because there's a whole bunch of off camber on this right-hand side here, right? If you started taking the turn, like you started hugging the curb and you couldn't bring yourself back, you basically just lose speed and wash downhill. That's all you're gonna end up doing. If you double apex it and then execute it right, it's actually it's actually simpler, it's safer, right? Okay. So now I'm gonna stay on the left until you can see that I can almost hit the pointer turn, the mark on the left-hand side, and then I can stay aggressive through the next element. And this you can track on the outside, and now you can get back in. All right, okay, so now what you want to do is obviously you want to bring your car out to the right a little bit, and so now you can add quite a bit of speed on your left-hander. And just remember that a few yards down here, that's where the second bump is. So you will see me when I track out, I don't track all the way out to the right. I actually stay midline, then I go to the right. Right in the middle, then I go to the right. Okay, so now this is important. This is the braking zone now, right? Remember I was talking about going uphill, then it falls away. You can't see where the braking zone is, right? When I was talking about that before turn 11. So sometimes I brake, in the beginning I would brake probably right around here, just to be safe. But the reality is you can go over the top of the hill and start braking during the downhill. So let's watch this. See, I'm continuing accelerating to 107 now. Now I'm in the downhill, right? This is where you can probably start braking. And then you let it go halfway, and then you get on the curb, and then you can see now this is the exit, right? So this corner is going to be downhill, not much off camber, but when you turn in here, you notice that there's also a reference cone that tell you where the turn in is, and you want to get on this. I think what happened is when the people earlier on, when they didn't do it right, they either going too hot and couldn't make the turn, or they try to apex a little too early. So when they exit out, they just wash all the way into the tree, right? But if you wait a little bit and get on that curb, and then when you can see the corner exit, then you start to roll on and try to hit this spot, then it'll be pretty safe. See right here, then this way, there's no way that this tree is coming into play. See that? All right, so now what you want to do is you want to track outside on the right-hand side, but you want to cheat yourself back to the left again to make the next kink, right? So this is what we're doing here. So now we can attack into the next kink. And as soon as you get into the next kink, you got to start slowing down. And what I like to do is after I pass the kink, I start riding the curb and make that 90-degree turn here. And now, because this car was here, I was worried about him, so I stayed really, really tight because I didn't know what he was going to do, and he might ruin my lap. That's why I stay on the inside. But normally, what I would do is from here, I would track out to where this car is, and then make a decrease radius turn into the finish. See, this time I didn't do that. See how much off I am here. Normally my car should be probably in this direction, but what I end up doing is I didn't make it turn tight enough. So I end up sacrificing my exit speed. So now I couldn't get back on gas, couldn't get back on gas. Now I can get on. So if you would take the other turn, I could have get back on gas probably 20, 30 feet before that. Right? So now, so this is the end of the run. Yeah, to finish. And then you can see that it'll only pass, and then I'll track over and do it again. And that's it. All right. Anything, comments, questions? Want to watch the line again, or what do you guys want to do? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Can you so can you share, and then so then I can talk through it. Okay. Yeah. So I will stop sharing. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right, I can see. Everybody can see?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Hopefully you get.
Okay. It's choppy for me, but so I'm just going to go ahead and try to read it. So this is the downhill braking zone to the left on the previous lab, right? So now we're going back to straight, and then the woods on the right is the one that you don't want to go in, right? And then after this point, you want to cheat back to the left so you can full speed through that kink. And now you can turn in on the left and make sure that you hit the apex on the outside right. And then basically this is the start of the turn. So now we're going hard, go through start and finish on the right, and then cheat back to the left and make sure that you clear the left. And then right now by the service road braking zone, brake hard. Now turn in, don't get on the curb to the right early. You want to ride all the way out to the end of the curve because you want to go through these S's that you can attack them. So now try to carry whatever the speed that you can carry. Stay midline in the center, and now turn back in. This corner is long, so hop on the corner, stay on the corner, keep going straight. Now you can attack uphill, watch for the bump here, get back on the left-hand side, stay on the left, ride all the way up until top of the hill and track out a little bit, but immediately bring yourself back to the inside. Now do a double apex, back into the corner, stay on the curve as long as you can. Now go back to the next S's attack, track yourself out, right? Go back into the right, and then make to the left-hand turn. Watch out for the bump on the inside, and then stay straight and go through top of the hill, brake just over the top of the hill, and then brake hard, get on the curb a little bit later, and until you see the line, then you can track out to the right. Now you can cheat back to the left, right? And so that you can make that kink over there to the right-hand side. As soon as you pass that kink, brake, turn left in, and then stay on the curb, and then get out to the right-hand side, make your decrease radius turn into the finish. Right, and that was a tough one. I'm guessing. Yeah. All right. Hey, I feel like what's his name? Shoot, the F1 warm up. Who's the, yeah, Lawrence. Yeah. To like recite, like what happened in 60 seconds. Yeah. All right. So yeah, that's Jefferson. I ran Jefferson. Like I always do track crosses. I've been doing all the track crosses for about 5 years now, right? So Nate is the one that got me going the first time, right? So and Nate always kicked my ass over there. So but I kept on practicing. I never stopped going. So I started doing summer and both refrigerator bow and all the summer stuff, and then I've been doing TT for 3 years now. So pretty familiar with that place. There's some quirky stuff. The double apex stuff is quirky. It takes a while to figure out. In turn one, that you attack the S's. That's important. That's hard to execute. Going uphill for that bump, need some guts to do that. And then the braking after the downhill on corner 11. That's something that's really hard in person. Like when you first see it and you want to go through it and go, kind of, especially it's completely blind. So on that first left-hand turn, just remember, if you brake at the top of the hill, you'll be okay. When you go over the top of the hill, you got to be very aggressive under braking. If you brake before the hill, you probably lose some time. And then, and other than that, just the finishing element. But the finishing, the finish, when you stay in tight and then track out and then do the decreased radius finish, and after one session or 4 or 5 times, you should be able to get that pretty good. So, yeah. A normal time that people run there are in the 120s. So anywhere in the 120s should be pretty good. If I have a really fast car, it'll be in the high teens. The fastest time I've seen was probably Martin Kritz in the Exoset, and I think he ran a 111, 112, or some stupid thing like that. Yeah, nuts. But then the second fastest guy I know, Justin Neal can run in the low 115s. So it kind of gives you an idea of a fully prepped C6 Corvette can run. I ran, you saw the time there. I ran a 117 at using Ada's car, but there was no aero, and then basically no downforce, stock suspension, and then not the biggest and widest tires. So I think no. With aero, this it will be nuts. Because you can go through a lot of these, S's and all that stuff a lot faster. Yeah. So yeah. I think that, but most of all, the most important thing is we need to have a safe event. Everybody be happy. The time that you're going to lose are most likely going to be losing it with not organizing who's going first, who's going second, and give each other place, right? Because you get distracted one time on course anywhere, you're going to lose somewhere between 1 to 3 seconds. If you get distracted, even though you felt like you're driving 100%, but you're still going to get, that little distraction is you lose seconds, right? Where if somebody holds you up or somebody made a funny move that you go, what is that guy doing? And all that kills time. So I still think it's critical that once you know that exactly what you run, in sequence, intermediate events, just work them out ourselves, get yourself lined up right in the beginning, and then work out your orders, and do that for every session. And then by the second or third session, everybody know exactly what's going on. Then everybody should have some clear track to attack for at least a couple laps. Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. If you don't organize that, I guarantee you everybody will run slower as a group collectively. But if you work together, it would definitely be faster.
Important question.
Yeah.
Where are the bathrooms?
Oh, only one bathroom. So my recommendation, obviously you guys have been to Summit Point a bunch of times. If you have to get gas, which most likely you would, right? Get the gas at Maine. Don't get the gas at Shenandoah, right?
Oh, okay.
I'm the one that I put gas in Shenandoah, and then it ended up to be water in there, and then my car immediately goes to live mode. So I never get gas in Shenandoah again. I always get gas at Maine, right? So the bathroom is right there. It's very clean, and it's got an outside patio. And then if it's cold, go inside, and there's microwaves, and there's a classroom.
Okay.
There's stuff like that.
So next question, where are we going to paddock? Now that we have, the little map here of paddock.
Yeah. So that paddock is really small, right? So,
yeah.
So, if you want to hang out, it's definitely not a problem to kind of hang out. I think what most people do is, it depends on the day. Obviously, if it rains, then all bets are off, right? Everybody's going to be slow. But, what a lot of people do is along the trees on the outside, if you want to make sure that your car parks in a dry spot, the people usually take up that role. But usually what happens is people would leave the asphalt surfaces for people to pass through, and people just park on grass. One of the spot that when I go that I park, a lot of people doesn't seem like they like to park there. Did you see that little tiny pad in front of the classroom? Right, you can park 4 or 5 cars there, right in front of the classroom or the bathroom. See that
Oh,
little
yeah.
pad over
Okay.
there, right? And then
People think that's reserved parking. But
yeah,
it's
I mean, sometimes I just park right there. Right there, right there. You're exactly. So yeah, just move it up a little bit to the left. Yeah, right there. Yeah, you can park right there. Yeah. Yes. And then there's a air pump right now. There's an air. You can fill up air right there on the outside right edge of that building. But yeah, there's an air pump there. But you can definitely park right in front of there if you want. Yeah.
cool.
So what most people would do is that's the spot that most people would take it up right away, right? So if you want to take over, you can just basically park anywhere. I mean, if it doesn't rain, it's fairly dry. It's all flat. Yeah, it'll be fine. I mean, usually, John's been there a few times, right? Dimitri's been there a few times. When that spot over the top right corner is where all the the 86 Cup guys park. Yeah, right there. Yeah, they grab there. Then food wise, it's just like Summit Point. There's no food there. You have to go to Maine or go to Shenandoah for food. Yeah, I mean, there should be quite a few people there, right? So it's one of the last SCCA. Isn't it the last SCCA TT event there?
Yeah.
I think it's the one in November in Dominion. I don't know. This might be the last one there, so I'm sure there'll be quite a few people there.
Yeah, there's something like 100 people.
Yeah, that's a
106 register Saturday. So.
Yeah, that's a lot. You definitely want to get yourself organized and be at the front.
Yeah, let's get some cones out, like
yeah. So
or some flags, and we'll have somebody come out and they're doing their own starting.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, like for those of you who don't do track or have never done track, when you're going out for your first lap, and the guy's like waving you up, and you're like, oh shit, it's time to go. Oh shit, it's time to go. Give it a second. You don't have to rush right out there behind the guy in front of you. Let them get 15, 20 seconds out ahead of you. Create some space. And if there's somebody faster behind you, you can just point them by, and they'll be grateful for that nice gap of empty track ahead of them.
Yeah.
Small track.
I do want to add what Mike is saying. So that's you can do that, right? Except that in this particular situation, you picture that if you let somebody go 10 seconds, right, in front of you, right, your track is only a minute and 20 seconds. If you have 35 cars in your run group, right, you let somebody else go, you won't even have a clean lap. When the time you come around, the second thing, you'll be catching the end of the train. Right? So you gotta be really careful with that, right? That strategy works at humongous tracks like that's 2 minutes and 35 seconds. But at this particular one, right? This is the issue here at Jefferson. Jefferson has has 14 turns in a minute and 15 seconds, roughly, right? That's quite a bit of turns when you think about it, right? The main is a minute and 20 seconds if you run the same speed, but there's only 10 turns, right? So it's a pretty busy place, at Jefferson, right? Plus you have elevation changes and blind turn-ins and all of that stuff, right? So you probably won't have the luxury of giving people a lot of time in front of you, because then if you do that, nobody will get a clean lap.
Yeah, you'll just be spaced out, and you'll catch the guy in front of you or the guy behind you.
Right, because it's so small, right? If it's a huge course, if it's a huge track, like over 2 minutes, and you have 20 people, yes, like give yourself plenty of room, then you never see anybody. It's awesome, right? But in this case, this is going to be tougher. I guarantee you.
It's more about trying to filter out who's faster, let them get ahead of you in the grid.
Yeah.
Right?
So this. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the things that you can do is like on that first lap, if you know that other people on the back is going to do something, that's why I would say get yourself right in the start, right? If you get yourself right in the start, like say 10 of you, then the guy in the front can control the pace of the entire thing. Because what happens is picture that you first 10 just boom, took off and go away. And then the 25 guys behind you, they were taking their time and all that stuff. Then what happens is when you come around and do your first hot lap, they're probably still exiting the pit, right? So the first guy has to control its pace, right? If they has to constantly look in the back and say, is everybody out of the pit? Is everybody out of the pit? Is everybody out of the pit? Because when you come across, to the finish, that turn 13, 14, you can actually see the pit when you go across, sort of, right? So if you start still seeing a train of lines that are coming through, then everybody needs, especially in the front, need to kind of give each other, basically have a common knowledge and say, okay, let's control the pack a little bit, right? Make sure that everybody catch up. Because the key thing is you definitely want to have one lab open, right? Yeah. I mean, the worst thing is if the fastest guy catches the guys that's leaving on the back, and now all of a sudden you got 35 cars all in the same spot, they're all jammed up, right? And if you do that, then you'll have a problem getting a clean lap for anybody, And then, yeah, well, that's what everybody says, right? I mean, like, yeah, right. So definitely something to consider, yeah. So the thing is if you do time trial stuff and you've got stuck in the middle and then you get people in front too much room, let's say, right? And then when people jump, then you end up going everybody gang up on you, right? And I think that's the tough part about the time trial group, because everybody get together immediately and then we go through review. And then if you got 6 guys jumping on you, say, man, what are you doing? It's a real tough spot to be. That actually happened at time trial nationals. One guy was like doing his own thing, right in the middle, and he killed everybody else's runs. And then end up that, like the whole, we have the entire 25 cars in that run group. 15 people attacked the guy. And that guy just walked out of there. I mean, he couldn't stay, right? I mean, it's really ugly, but he kind of did it to himself,
Yeah. So I went and looked at the registration. There's 25 cars registered for intermediate. Some of those are waitlist. So hopefully it won't be too crowded.
Yeah.
It's like 20
so how many in advance
at the same time? Let's see.
No, I'm just curious.
Let's see. Yeah, because it's got all the events on one page, right? So I got to go back and see. Okay, so 17 for Saturday.
17 for advanced, 25 intermediate, and then a lot of novice.
Yeah, some of that intermediate is waitlist.
Yeah, I mean, how many people in time trials? Like 10.
Novice is 35.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Time trial is only 17, 18 if I can get switched.
Well, that's a lot. That's a lot of people at time trials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they going to be on track at the same time as us?
No.
No,
Separate
time trials.
sessions.
No, time trials runs their own.
Okay.
So this is why you want to run in time trials, right? Because time trials are usually the least subscribed, and then it's probably people they all know what they're trying to do, right? So nobody gets into each other's way when they do time trials, with the exception of a couple of people, right? They show up late, they don't pay any. No, I mean not. What they would do is they're fast people but they show up late. They don't they didn't grid in their right spot, and they jump in there and then try to get everybody, give them point buys, and then when that happens, that ruins everybody's race.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So the thing is, then when you don't give them point buy, and then the guy gets nasty. But when you give them point buys, it kills your time run, right? So if everybody showed up on time, everybody grid in time, and grid up in order of your speed, then there's no issue. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
This is kind of more like a technical question for like the race director. Last year we had like a spot where we would time people at. Is there some place you guys have in mind? We have a spot? Okay, that's all. Okay. Padded. All right.
Like maybe coming out of that last turn before. things.
Yeah. Yeah, the time trial people have transponders. So if you're in a time trial group, you can just use your transponder time. Yeah, that's fine.
What if you're renting a transponder?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So, everybody make sure that tire pressure on track, especially if it's a long session, you start a little lower, because you can gain 5, 6, 7 psi throughout your runs, right? And then always make sure you have enough gas. Don't get fuel starvation. Run a little bit more gas doesn't hurt, especially for ATA. We know that long right-handers you get fuel starvation, so run at least 3/4 of a tank or more. Yeah, so just want to make sure that everybody knows where all the spot is, and the line that I was showing you guys actually give you plenty of room to bail, right? So you have whole day to get your lab, right? So if you get crossed up into a spot, don't force it. I mean, this is not a 3-run national thing that you have to execute, or otherwise you hit something, right? You definitely have hopefully the entire day to better the situation, right? So if you haven't seen the course, I don't want to say, I mean, I'm not the type that's going to tell you, hey, take it slow to see what's going on first, right? But definitely know where you're going, and then be confident first, right, before you start attacking. Yeah. And then as long as everybody is safe and sound, then it'll be a successful event.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Thanks, Danny.
That's all I got. All right, cool, sweet.
Thank you, Danny.
Yeah.